Good evening, MSAD75. It is 6 o'clock. It is time for the second and currently final scheduled budget deliberation meeting in the Finance Committee. After our last meeting, we spent time going through the superintendent's proposed budget. We had some discussion. We had some questions for some information and some possible things to talk about tonight. So I guess, Evan and Heidi, do you guys have anything you want to inform us about before we start asking questions of you guys?
Yes. I didn't have the document to pass you, but
I know. I do have one I can pass out.
Yeah.
Great. I can help with that. I'll let you talk. You? Might be two there, but that's all right.
So thank you, Hudson. And you, at the last meeting, you all had asked us if we would look at what a 5.5% increase and a 5.0% increase. And we looked at our staffing, we looked at all the items, and we were able to get there. So previously, to get to 5.5% would have been about 300 and something thousand. We actually were able to get it down to, the actual amount is 240,000 that we had to get cut off to get to 5.5%, and then 530,190 to get to 5.0. And the reason is Evan was able to go in and do a couple of things, and we're able to actually drop our budget from 6.11 down to 5.92%. And so I'm going to let him explain that.
Thank you. So there are three contributing factors here. The first one is a teacher retirement. So we had someone at the top of the pay scale give their retirement notice last week. So that dropped us down by about $30,000. The second thing is that one of the requests that we had in the budget for this coming year was a $40,000 ask for the phone system upgrade. After going through all of the lines we had in the budget this year, we realized that we had enough money in a couple software lines and a couple of contracted services lines that we'll be able to move some money around to cover that $40,000. And finally, there was a $23,000 amount of money that I saw in our contracted services line in the business office. I looked at the service that was provided there and I double counted it, once in software and once in contracted services. So that eliminated another $23,000. So taking out those reductions, we were able to bring the budget down to 5.92% increase over last year. Yeah, there was our phone network is run through a company called Harbor Networks, and the monthly service charge on that, like the amount we pay each month, I was counting it in business office software and in the contracted services line, so I double counted it. So I was able to pull it out of one of the lines. So I'm glad I checked. So yeah, 5.92, and that does not include any reductions that we would see with our health insurance rate.
Great. So this is essentially the revised superintendent's proposal with some extra savings that you found.
Correct.
Fantastic.
And then just to touch on the health insurance piece there, if we were to get the maximum amount of rate. So they came out with a letter on Friday saying that they're going to cap all rate increases at 11.5%. I went back today and saw, like I went into our accounting software, I looked at all the lines and I looked at the amount I budgeted. I was telling 15% previously. I actually budgeted 13%. So that's still good because we were over, but we're going to be capped at 11.5%. So a savings around $60,000 is what we can realistically expect.
That's great. That's good news. And it's nice getting it ahead of the latest possible date, you know, having some of that information. Please.
Yeah, I think that's good then. I don't know what I did.
Evan, they're going to cap it at 11.5, but it could be less than that in a fairy tale world, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
But we know the worst case scenario, so there's that.
The date, we know that, remind me again.
At the latest, April 10th.
The date for our meeting.
Yeah, perfect.
Exactly.
They kind of said it in before.
Yes, hey, listen, we can hope.
Yeah. I do have,
Real quickly,
Sorry, a clarification. So Evan, your 5.92 number, does that also include the lower worst-case scenario?
Does not.
It does not. Okay, thank you.
Good question. Sorry, go on, Heidi.
So to respond to the lower worst-case scenario, I do have a chart. Evan just checked my numbers, and it looks pretty good, so I'm going to hand this out to you. These are not, obviously not set in stone, but the numbers that we need in order to get to the 240,000. We looked across the board at things we might be able to eliminate or reduce, and that is what these speak to. So if people are listening and they see in their positions, this is for your understanding so that you know that in order to get to that lower number, these are how many positions we would need to cut from the budget or to eliminate from the budget in order to be able to get to that 5.0% or that 5.5%. So I want people to be able to see that and see what the human element is attached to it.
Thank you very much. Frank? And I may leave my mic on generally just to make sure that things I say are on the Zoom, but if that gets annoying, someone just yell at me and say, Hudson, turn off your mic.
To get to the 4.5 or the 4.0, it's everything in 5.5, 5.0, and then additional positions because we have nothing left besides positions to cut from the budget to get to 4.5.
Gotcha. Thank you. We'll take a second. We can look at this and just pop your hand up if you've got a question. I'll try to see. That is A-okay. You do that. We will be here. Evan, on the first tier, the 5.5% page,
Yes,
athletics cut in half. Is the overall athletics ask that's cut in half?
that's correct. And the other piece of that too, which I should mention also, which contributes to the 5.92, I didn't mention this before. So there's four things. The fourth would be that the AED request that Heidi Wright had put together, Chris Hoffman and I are working together actively right now to try to purchase those for this spring sports season proactively. So that also contributes to the 5.92.
Use some budget overflow from this year to
Exactly.
get that done. That's great.
So the athletics in half would be everything minus the AEDs
AEDs cut in half.
cut in half.
Great. And I just comment on the effort that you were doing with Chris Hoffman. It's great. I mean, the sooner we get those in place, obviously, the more safe our student athletes all are. So that's good work.
Yep. We had put a request of 5 units together at 11,500. So whatever that math is,
A
like,
little over 2,000.
yeah, a little over 2,000 each. And just for more context too, I understand that I think we have 2 of them right now that are over 20 years old. So you got one built
Hey,
in.
Frank, you just got to go out of the games. Make sure Frank's our new volunteer AED. Got another question for you, Evan.
Yeah.
Looking at the first proposed reductions, the two personnels, I know that we recently had a custodial resignation. Given that, would this cut just be not rehiring a lower position, or would it be actually cutting a position in addition to that?
It would be actually cutting a position in
In
addition to that.
addition to that, so it'd be leaving the currently resigned position open essentially, as well as.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Yeah.
That last time, I can't remember, is that the savings when we transition from, get the diesel out?
I think
and
so.
the gasoline
Yeah.
comes in?
For the last couple of years, we've been budgeting 330,000. We've already bumped it down to 300,000. And then $5,000 off of that would bring it to 295. A little bit of price uncertainty, obviously, in the world right now. So maybe it doesn't make sense to touch that one, but that was one area where we determined, yeah, we could probably chop 5,000 off if we were. Correct, yeah.
Did you find it? Okay, good. Another quick question, just looking at that first reduction scenario. So what category might an aide be in? What, obviously, I'm not talking about a specific role position, but like, what might that encompass? And if you feel you can't answer that, fine, I just figured I'd ask.
I had the same question.
It's worth asking, even if they did.
It would fall under the support staff contract.
Okay. And would it be like, again, broadly speaking, a classroom aide, a bus aide, something along those lines potentially? Again, I know that we're not talking about
I'd just like to keep it in general
Great.
right now.
totally reasonable. This is why I was expecting you to maybe say something like that. That's okay.
I would hesitate to cut a role like that when we're going forward with MTSS. I know you don't want to, and I'm not suggesting you do, but that would, I think we're going to need more aides in the classroom as we transition to more gen ed settings for more special ed, right? That's the goal for next year.
And I think we've seen a lot of success with our efforts in that line so far, I would add.
I don't believe, though, that this particular position would affect that.
Okay.
So
Okay.
just to clarify.
Okay.
But I do hear what you're saying, and that has been taken into consideration and crossed.
So Heidi and Evan, these two schemes that you've provided to us, one that essentially gets us to a 5.5% increase and the second is a 5.0. Do these both meet our maintenance of effort obligation under the state statutory scheme?
Oh, as far as future funding, you mean?
Yeah.
Like making sure that we're,
Hudson, please restate my question.
yeah, so,
You can do a good
no,
job.
I just, it's a good question I didn't think of. The question is,
5.2.
I mean, I couldn't tell you one way or the other on that.
Yeah.
Let them think for a second. Let's hear your stab, Frank.
Exactly.
Our maintenance of effort is currently at 5.06. So if we go to 5, then we are undercutting our maintenance of effort by a small amount, but still by 0.06. So that still is somewhat of an issue in my mind. But
Yeah,
Thanks, Frank.
so Frank's correct about that. However, there are reasons in order to be able to cut the maintenance of effort. You have a lower enrollment is one reason that you can justify the maintenance of effort through the federal funding, but also a reduction of high-cost retirements or additionally high-cost out-of-district placements, that number is coming down. And we have seen that over the last year, that the high-cost out-of-district placements has come down. Now, it doesn't mean that somebody won't move in and push us back up again, but right now we're at that location, so, or at that spot.
And if we did go to 5, that would become the new MOE.
For next year, yes.
And this all still assumes a carrying of a fund balance expenditure of 1.5 million, I assume. Okay.
I've got another category question, and I'm fine discussing this broadly. Your 5% reduction scenario, you have an FTE at Mount Ararat that's not designated as a teacher. And I was just curious, what kind of position might that be?
These are all positions on the teacher's contract.
Okay, thank you very much.
I have a question about, how does that work with a contract?
So we review based on needs and where we think we might be able to go, which is what we've done with this, is that this could be a possibility with the least impact, not that there wouldn't be an impact, because there would be, and I want to be clear about that. But we look at all the needs and we look at the numbers. And so, for example, this is just hypothetical. If a teacher who is in the English department, and we cut a position in English, that teacher then can RIF somebody with the same type of credentials as them. So it would have to be in the same department unless they had a teaching certification in that specific area. So it means that if this happens, there will be movement and riffing throughout the district.
And that would be, yeah, just for clarity again, per the negotiated contract with the Merrymeeting Educators Association. So with that seniority is all negotiated.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was getting at. Okay, thank you. So I was looking at the 5.5 spreadsheet here, and I took the first line, as we talked about the safety and security and the possibility of being able to split that over a couple, I think 3 years. Is that what we were looking at? Because I think it was around 600K originally.
So what we did was the original amount was 650,000 to do everything that we needed to do district-wide. We reduced that down to 250,000 in the budget. This would be an additional 120,000. And one of the things that we talked about today, which I forgot to put in here, was the possibility of taking that 120,000 that's in here and moving it into a reserve line, which would have to be voted on for safety and security, so that throughout the year, we could spend the 130,000 that we've left in the budget and then access this if we continued to need that or move it into the next year. And reducing it by 120,000 then reduces the increase as well. It takes it off the tax burden. That's an option. We talked about it this morning. I forgot to put that in here.
That would leave 130,000 of the security upgrade ask in the budget, with 120 deferred or in a reserve account.
Correct, yes. It's in this in order to get to the 5.5%. It's in here, but if we remove that, it will be probably like, what, 5.3? Don't
Yeah.
doing that off the top
You're
of my
good.
head. So that's kind of what we're looking at.
Yep.
Hey, Heidi, are you able to provide details about what we would be putting off in terms of that safety and security?
Sure. So the safety and security, when we wrote the grant, we wrote it for cameras outside of all of our buildings. There are some that are very old that don't even work, that don't even hook up to the systems. I'll give you an example for the situation that occurred in Bodenham, the lockdown. We have cameras outside, but we couldn't capture it. They couldn't be saved. They couldn't be pulled out. When they asked for them, we had to screenshot things from the bus drivers. We couldn't get the actual footage. So it would be updating things like that. We've done all of our badges, so that's in good place. We did purchase the wires. We make it a centralized system so that everybody was getting the same thing, and it would be equity across the board.
The girls that wandered off earlier, it seems like years ago, but the girls that wandered off, they would like be camera systems now that would have.
Correct. We would have had camera systems out towards the playgrounds, which we don't have now, and which we could not provide any information from cameras because nothing went that far. It was directly at the door, and that was pretty much it.
Please.
So I'm coming at it from a different angle. Um, I see this, I have very strong feelings about the budget, and this has gone around in my head. I've retired, I've got nothing else to do but to think about school stuff. And so I've been thinking about the budget issue since we've been working on it, really. But now that we're down to our final drafts, at first I thought that we really need to cut to get to an MOE. And that was really as far as I would felt like I really wanted it to go. But I don't think that anymore. Heidi has prepared a very, very tight budget. This budget is clear. There are things in here that we're contemplating cutting, and I don't like to see that. I like to see exactly what it is that she needs, and she's described that very, very well. And I was prepared to come in here and say, I'm happy with 6.11%, that being only 1.05 above the MOE. But now that we're down to 5.92, that's like 0.86 above our present MOE. To me, what is the price of a great education? And this is not exorbitant. This is an excellent budget without any cuts. And I'm here to support that at 5.92. And that's my feeling. And I know it's difficult. I know what it's like. I'm on a fixed income. My only retirement is Social Security. And I must tell you, it's not very high because my first couple of years of teaching, 16 years in Massachusetts, did not go into Social Security. And my first wife got it. So that's okay. You know, that's the reality of life sometimes. And so this is a really good budget. They've worked really, really hard at it. And I support 5.92%.
Thank you, Frank.
Evan, do you have like a magic calculator to plug in what fraction of a percent, or maybe a tenth or 0.2% would be the $63,000? Because on the 5.5 reduction scenario, you've got $58,000 in health savings, which we know we're going to get, right? Okay, and then the 5,000, which that is a gamble, but again, by the same metric, if you're calculating the gasoline versus diesel,
Feels like a safe bet.
it's a safe bet because it's the same math. So for consistency's sake, 58 plus 5 is $63,000. Where does that get us on top of the 5.92?
I can speak to, yeah, give me 1 second here.
I'm putting you on the spot there.
You're good, don't worry. Everyone can take their time and not feel rushed. Blanket statement.
Oh, okay. Sorry, no, I'm talking to myself.
For anyone listening, Frank is very good at doing math in his head. We've seen that before. It's been
Not
very
even
useful.
Poking at my calculator
Exactly.
because I am.
Yeah. Maybe I was once good at it. I'm certainly not anymore. Yeah, there you go.
Okay, that would be a 5.81% increase. Welcome.
So realistically,
We're at that.
that's where 5.81.
Give or take.
Yeah, I think so.
11.5.
Yep.
That they won't go
Above that. That's what they said.
5 seats.
Yep,
Plus
yeah. That'd be 5.81.
We can sort of treat that as our unofficial baseline at the moment. If you guys are comfortable with that, if that makes you uncomfortable, obviously,
No, I think that's reasonable.
let us know.
that's without cutting in staff. That giving athletics what they need. That is cutting a custodial staff and the aide for 9,000.
No.
Oh.
This is the baseline. This is.
Oh,
You're
yes.
yes. So that's a good, I'm glad you got a little confused. This is a good moment to clarify. So what we're saying is, on the list of reductions that you provided us, Jessica's proposal, which I think I agree with, is that the health insurance and motor fuel savings are both essentially built into our budget. So we can credit our baseline with those reductions without moving them over. So that's where we get to the 5.81 without dipping into any of the other additional stuff. So hopefully that was clear as I explained. Okay, good. One member of the public gives me a thumbs up.
Your focus group of
Exactly. Yeah,
Thank you for clarifying.
thank you for asking the question. Again, this is good. Andy, do you have any thoughts? Excellent. I thought maybe.
Last board meeting and facilities meeting, we were talking about a need for soft costs to fund our continued efforts for this facility master plan and, start rolling into planning and design efforts and additional forums for the community. So that number is 476,500. We were hoping to spread that over 2 fiscal years. So in this budget, we're hoping to find, 240,000 roughly, which is like another 0.4% on the 2026 budget. So I think it sounded like Sean maybe could get creative with some items in this facility budget, but like, I don't know how realistic that is. And, if we want to commit to continuing to move the facility master plan effort forward, I think it's important to consider something.
Thank you, Andy. That's a good perspective.
Yes, we are supposed to get together, but today is Monday. It was a busy day today is.
It's Monday. No, it's already been that kind of a week. You are,
I've been running through altogether.
you're not wrong.
We will get together and talk about those things that we talked about at finance. We just haven't had a chance to do that yet. And I wasn't here Friday, so.
Please.
So Andy, at this point, that you don't believe that we've reflected that in our budget at this point, is that correct?
No, it doesn't appear as though we've accounted for it yet because that came up at our facility meeting.
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong, at our facilities meeting, we did agree that that was important to include this time around.
Right, and, part of what Sean and Heidi and Evan probably are gonna work on is you
how
know,
to get it.
can they find it in,
The
facilities?
current expenditure.
And,
Right.
we were considering, do we drop off some other need in the facilities budget to take a piece of it, of what we need. So I don't know how creative we can get, and what we can push off. So I know with the bond, for the middle school and the site improvements and juggling around some of the funds, we might be able to get creative with a piece of the 240,000, but I don't know if we can find all of it.
Right, because we could use some of that bond money for covered improvements that would free up money that was otherwise allocated for the same improvement.
Correct.
Mhm.
That was the, yeah.
We're trying not to, throw money at schools that are slated for
For sure.
improvements. And so as he's juggling his CIP around for the rest of this year and next year, to be smart about how that's utilized, and can we stretch like a roofing project out that, is due now on a school that is going to get renovated, but we feel like we can, consider a repair instead of a replacement, kind of philosophy. So,
Gotcha.
so yeah, we're trying to get crafty, but I just wanted to let this group know that it's not a resolved issue yet.
Evan, where did we land on the reserve for the turf field improvements down the line? Do we know what that balance was?
No, but I can look in our audit right now.
Cool. I just remembered, I remembered that we had discussed that at one of the town meetings, but didn't talk about it last week. I just wanted to refresh my own memory, post-audit.
Yeah, let me take a couple minutes to find that.
That's fine. And am I correct while you look at that we did we put any additional monies into that last year, or did we just maintain? I think we just maintained, right?
We initially put in close to 300,000.
Last year?
No, several years ago.
Okay, yeah, that
And that has been fairly, just there,
sitting there.
just
I-
sitting there.
I just ask only because, we're 5-ish years into this field at this point. And what do we need to be building that towards? Just thinking. Yeah, so just thinking about that. Andy?
I don't mean to take up.
No, no,
time, but the other part that kind of hit me in the head like a 2x4 was our fund balance starting to diminish. And I'm sure you guys have thought about that as well, but like, as we're considering these cuts and stuff, and it's just going to make that problem that much worse for the next budget season. So
that's part of why we're using a significantly smaller portion of the fund balance as part of this budget, sort of knowing that we can't continue to do that. So we've trimmed over $1 million of fund balance use out of this proposed budget. It's at 1.5 and it's at 2.65, I think, last year. I see Kim going for her mic.
Checking the light. I wanted to piggyback on Frank's remarks earlier about just commending Heidi and Evan, and I know it was really a team effort much beyond the two of you. I'm trying to remember what accolades you used, Frank, but this is really responsible budget. And I don't know if that's the word you use, but I know you'd agree with it. And so I agree with everything that Frank said. And I mean, I've been sitting here, I've been thinking before coming in tonight and sitting here as well, to the extent that the administration has identified these other two categories, if you will, of non-personnel improvements, I also think it could be responsible to say we can't do all of these things this year and we might need to push some things into a second year. And so just so everyone's clear about what I'm talking about, obviously we've already been talking about the allocation for cameras and ongoing investments in safety and security. You do not need to persuade me about the importance of cameras. I deal with school safety issues for a living and watch more school safety video than I care to admit to. which sounds really sketchy. It's all professional. So, but if it, if there's some cutoff point and you've suggested, having it, of course, and it's having it from the number you were carrying as opposed to the full potential cost of the project. If we need to if we need to trim that up a little bit, same thing with the athletics expenditures, all of which are worthy, but really appreciate Heidi Wright's, effort to prioritize that. So if we can't do everything this year, we can do some things this year and, carry some forward to next year. So I would support us moving in that direction. But I also think that if, the will of this group, we come out tonight is, essentially we're already down to 5.81. And, we want to continue to make those investments. I would support that too. I'm not trying to be wishy-washy. I'm
No,
just
no, no, I think it's,
sharing my
you
thinking. through all
have
of this.
several things you're feeling acceptance towards. I think
Yep.
it's not wishy-washy. Yeah. Gregory?
I just came into I was thinking of this meeting for a couple of days, and I keep on coming back to, we paid a lot of money to have strategic plan, community feedback. We wrote it, we implemented, and I considered it a kind of a promise that we made to the MSAD75 community that we would responsibly implement it, both in terms of scope and financially. And now that we've gone down to 5.81, I think that's even more possible to meet that. I'm kind of thinking Star Trek, a 5-year mission, a 5-year plan that I don't want to see put out to like 7 years or 8 years. And I also had in my head that we're not the final, I know you guys know this, we're not the final say. We could do the 5.81 and it has to go to the board, then it has to go to the Orion, and the community could push back and say, we're not going to accept that, or they might say, we agree that we want to have those cameras, we want to implement the 5-year plan just as much as the board does. So I'm supportive of the 5.81.
Thank you.
Did you say 5.1 or 5.81? Oh, perfect. Thank you.
In case that was on the mic, Gregory said 5.81%.
All right, so if you go, for the finance committee members here, the capital reserve balances are on page 99 of the audit.
Okay.
That's PDF page 103.
Sorry,
But-
this is the last audit?
Mhm.
Okay.
High school capital projects, 11,712. Capital improvement, 750,000. Athletic facilities, 41,203. So it looks like the majority of it is in capital improvement.
Okay. So that's what we've been sort of using as our bucket to cover all that. Yeah. No, for sure. So it's not a dedicated, again, I don't think this is bad, just for clarity. It's not a dedicated track reserve. It's a capital improvement reserve, which our intent is to help cover the track, maybe, amongst other things, but that's certainly the big known scenario. Thank you for that information, Evan. I appreciate that.
The other thing too is that in 2024, which we've just voted on, or the board voted on Thursday, was that we also established 2 other funds, a special ed fund and a general fund reserve line. So in the 2025 audit, you should see those lines added. Special ed was, I think, $100,000 and general education was $100,000. I could be mixing those up, just getting them backwards, but
Okay.
yep. So that should, in the next audit, we will see those numbers as separate accounts.
Thank you. That next audit that has begun?
On the scheduling of that.
I'm just
Yeah,
being excited. You're good. Don't worry.
yeah, no problem.
Listen, we're almost caught up. This feels great.
Actually, Hudson, can I?
You
say
may.
one thing? I've been thinking a lot about this over the weekend, and I recognize we haven't, this was in Heidi and Evan's presentation that they did for all the community sessions, but I feel like it hasn't gotten much airtime in our discussions, which is that I'm going to make a point, and then you're going to correct me if I misspeak, okay? Is that enrollment has ticked up. And, and that's, I think, a welcome development. Everyone around the table would agree with that. But of course, and I think the number district-wide, if I'm looking at the numbers right, I mean, we're talking about, a factor of tens, it's not huge. But I think folks need to anticipate that that's going to come with some additional cost, right? We need to say there's more kids to educate. And of course, that plays out in terms of the cost sharing formula across the 4 towns. And we also know that the state subsidy does not keep pace with the actual cost of those new students who we are educating. So despite the best efforts of our administration to improve how we do our reporting, I mean, you're doing such a better job of capturing as much state funding as possible. So, the part of, I imagine, part of what we can attribute the budget, if you're comparing year to year, right? Part of it is we've got, at least based on the enrollment numbers that you build the budget on, by my count, 14 or 15 more students this year than the year before. And of course, that plays out, right, in terms of how the budget is calculated and how the cost sharing formula is allocated across the towns.
Yeah, because the EPS works off of a multi-year average, so
Right.
it lags. It smooths it out. Smoothing it out is good.
It's not a perfect one for one, but that it attributes some portion of the year over year increase, right?
That's a good point to emphasize. Kim, thank you. I'll toss out a couple pieces of comparison information that I looked up earlier today. These are not perfect. I didn't break anything down by number of students. So I want to be very clear, I did not do that. And this is not perfect. But looking at some of our neighbors, just to reemphasize, we're right in line with where our neighbors are at. So Brunswick, at their proposal stage right now, has a 7.68% year over year increase with a 5.03% impact to the tax base. So it's a much smaller tax increase relative to the budget size. RSU 5 has actually
What was it again?
5.03% tax impact. RSU 5, meanwhile, has adopted a budget. Obviously, the voters have not voted on it, but the board has adopted a budget with a 7.1% increase and a 7.03% tax increase. They have a smaller student body than we do, I believe.
I'm sorry, what was the budget? 7.1?
Budget was 7.1, tax increase was 7.03. It's just me grabbing stuff from their website, so that's my source.
Well, and it's always hard to compare apples and apples because different towns go through different property revaluations at different times.
Exactly.
And so Brunswick, for example, went through a huge revaluation last year that I won't even begin to speak to authoritatively, but I followed it kind of.
There was a lot of controversy and issue last year.
Right,
absolutely.
exactly. And so that may play out in terms of why the Brunswick tax increase
Is low.
is arithmetically only 5.03.
Yeah. And on top of that, Brunswick's current proposal, not unlike us tonight, has 3 proposed possible tiered reductions, getting it down to a 7% increase with a 4.4% tax increase, a 6.78% overall increase with a 4.2% tax increase, and lastly, a 6.49% increase with a 3.93. Now, again, they have not adopted anything. This is just what they've had on their plate to discuss, and I've not watched any of their meetings. I don't know where their discussions are at. But again, I just like looking at sort of what some of our regional neighbors are doing as a, if nothing else, a gut check, right? It's not that I think we should copy anybody else, but like, are we in the realm that we would expect? And I would say that yes, we are. I would sort of say that And the tier percentages that they're looking at are very similar, that Brunswick is looking at are very similar kinds of reductions, you know, a little bit of a reduction in some facilities investment, a little bit of reduction in supplies or project monies, right? It's the same kinds of stuff that we're looking at until they get into positions, and they start getting into positions a little later on. So actually, they start with 7 eliminations. Their current draft has already done that work. Like our draft has eliminated some unhired positions, right? So we have done similar work. It hasn't resulted in any riffing. It doesn't result in any people being let go, but we have identified several positions that are no longer included as part of our budget. So technically, those are position reductions. So we have done that, similar to what we see at Brunswick. So anyway, I don't want to overemphasize that, but as a data point, I found it useful. But to your point, Kim, you know, you're thinking about the way different communities respond. I thought it was interesting that Brunswick, with a significantly lower tax impact, is still looking at significant reductions to further lessen that tax impact, which I think is, again, very much based on the prior year's experience.
So in terms of the budget adjustment hypotheticals that you prepared for us tonight, so the reduction of the safety and security item by $120,000, if I'm following this, the original number that was in the superintendent's budget was $250,000 out of a potential $650,000 scope of work, which is obviously jaw-dropping. So if we were to accept that suggested adjustment to the tune of $120,000, it would still mean that we are planning to do $130,000 worth of that project. Am I understanding that right?
That is correct.
Okay.
We also have the option, which we're still playing with these numbers. The total is really what's important to know. But for example, the 120,000, we have an unfilled position in transportation where we've gone from 22 runs to 21 runs. And we think we can manage with that. So we would actually take out 40,000 out of that 120 and do, what is that, 80,000? 80,000 and then 40,000 for the unfilled. So we would only be reducing the safety and security line by 80,000.
Gotcha.
So we're still kind of playing with that because any combination that equals the 250,000 technically that we have to reduce in order to get to 5.5.
And so, yeah, so thinking about that, like we'll recommend a budget tonight, but you might adjust some of the individual warrants between now and the 9th when we go to sign things. If anyone is uncomfortable with any of that, obviously, we can make that clear, but I don't think that's inappropriate. It doesn't make me uncomfortable at the very least, I think. It doesn't sound like we're talking about drastic warrant changes here, just, you know, trying to get creative about priorities, so.
Yeah. As if we have a timeline, but, you know, we'll have to make a decision pretty quickly regarding staffing if we are going to do that, because we have to tell people by a certain date.
Yeah, I mean, I think the board would adopt a budget in 2 weeks, basically, and that would then, a week and a half.
Yeah.
And that would be the point at which you begin, I imagine, the RIF notifications and whatnot. We did a little bit of that. Was it last year or the year before we did a little bit of that? 2 years ago? That's what I remember too, Frank. So.
Yeah, a couple of years ago.
We've been lucky we haven't had to do significant RIFs, but, you know, it's always a possibility. I'm going to take a moment. I've seen some questions sort of in the community, and I wanted to answer at least a couple of them. So I saw some questions about school buses, and there was a comment to the effect of, why are we buying school buses? And the answer is, we replace our buses and vans at the end of their useful life, which is either 10 years or around 250,000 miles. We have been migrating our fleet from diesel to gasoline, and we've got a very few number of diesels remaining. We're almost done with that work, but with a fleet of over 30 buses and add all the vans and stuff, that means 3 or 4 purchases a year on a 10-year cycle. But I promise anyone listening, we are maximizing our value on these vehicles. We are not wasting a penny, and it has nothing to do with deferred maintenance or poor maintenance. It's entirely about the end of a functional life at that 10-year, 250,000-mile mark. So that's a question I sort of seen, thought I would at least answer verbally, because you covered it in the presentations, and I just thought I'd say it again.
Yeah, and the other thing too that I'll mention that I talk with Tom Kane a lot about is that we have a cohort of buses that drive to Harpswell and back several times a day, and they do about 140 miles each day.
Yeah.
And we rotate those buses like on a year-to-year basis so that we can try to spread out those miles over as many buses
Right.
over as many years as possible. But we do have some significant number of miles being driven within our district just because going from one side of Harpswell to the
Yeah.
other is pretty far.
Pretty far. And even some of the like Bowden or Bodenham ones, we like have to go all the way down to Richmond and up a dead end road or something. I'm sure there's some, not to that same degree, but not short bus rides in that direction either.
Yeah, and the older buses tend to do. I could be misspeaking here, so I'll maybe Tom can comment on it on a later date. But I think the older buses tend to do the more in-town runs, so that if there was an issue with something at the far ends of the district, then it would be, you'd have a newer bus out
Yeah,
there.
you're not running the risk of a breakdown when you're all the way on the point or something.
Correct.
Yeah. No, I feel our bus strategy has been pretty consistent for, I think, multiple decades at this point, to be honest. And what I hear from every time we get a new transportation director, like, wow, your bus labeling schedule is good, your replacement schedule is good. And I think we've done a good job of assessing what the actual need is for a fairly geographically large, not the largest, but on the larger side, certainly, district. So thank you, Evan. So are people still mulling over numbers? Are there questions that are in people's minds?
Feel good about the 5.1. I agree that what everybody else has already said, that you guys have pared it down. I trust that you've gone line by line. I was at those meetings in towns, I heard the comments, feel it, and I'm looking at my town of Bowden, it's going up more than other towns by a considerable amount this year. And I feel for the people in my town, or my own tax bill. I don't know where else to cut.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think that 0.81 over our MOE is significant, given the times that we're in.
Yeah.
And I think it's good budget too. So I guess that's where I'm at.
I think that's a pretty reasonable position. Kim, do you have any, you actually already gave some thoughts. Gregory, do you have any thoughts? He loves it. He's with Frank. You're with Jessica. It's true. You're with Frank and Jessica. I'm not trying to exclude Jessica. Thank you. Yes, yes, you're absolutely right, Frank. We are all together. I want to pitch an idea, and I suspect the idea will be noed pretty heavily, but I'll just put it out there, which is, I think there is some value in trying to get to the 5.5, and I think we could do it with the non-personnel reductions, of which we're really only talking about 2 at this point. We're talking about reducing safety, the camera safety and security investment for this year, and we're talking about staging the athletics over 2 years, essentially. And then I would say that I think we could pull essentially $30,000 from our fund balance to do $1,530,000 of fund balance usage and get to 5.5 this year. We continue to significantly draw down our fund balance usage, which we need to do. But what I think, looking ahead at some of our major investments, I think we do need to seriously consider, and I hate saying this, but I'll be the one to say it so the knives can come at me, staff reductions. I think we need to consider them. Consider doesn't mean do them, approve them, be gung-ho about them, but I think we need to consider them. And what I would pitch is that we should do that at the beginning of the budget process, which doesn't mean Heidi starts saying, cool, I'm gonna eliminate Evan's position and Frank's position and Jessica's position at the very first meeting. But I think if we might, for some long-term planning, given the costs that are coming, I think a more long-term assessment on some staffing might be worthwhile, which means I don't want to sort of just scattershot do $30,000 worth of savings at the end of the budget process right now. I don't think that's particularly smart or effective, because $30,000 also is not a whole lot. So I would say, again, this is just my thinking, one person. I think there's some use in the 5.5%. I think we can get there with some delayed expenditure and a very small amount more fund balance. And I think there's some value in that, with the idea that we're trying to set up a continued, and again, I'm not trying to suggest you guys were not thoughtful about potential reductions. I know for a fact that you were. So again, to anyone listening, they were very thoughtful about staff reductions for this year. My thought is I think we need to think more. That's all. Not that we didn't do it, but I think more is required. So anyway, I will stop talking. That's sort of what I would pitch to the committee. And which again, should not be construed as a lack of faith in the budget they built. Because I'm with everyone else too. This budget is great. But the local tax share is not great. And that's the dilemma I find myself in. It does not have anything to do with the faith in this budget. It's the outsized tax share that we see.
So I'm gonna say no. But I think like it's an opportunity, like I'm thinking safety and cameras. I don't wanna, and I also made the point last time that it's not getting any cheaper to put these cameras in. And I would hate to have anything happen because, and if something happened, it was like, well, if we had cameras, but that we budgeted out, we would know something that we don't know. I also think as a finance committee, I think Hudson, I would encourage you, if you want that position, to take it at the full board. I think that's an opportunity to have that conversation. But to come in at 5.81 with like, we can say the board, this is like for all the reasons we've said before, not to reiterate that, but I think this is an opportunity as a finance committee to say this is a budget that fulfills the mission that we started with, which was to maintain the infrastructure and the programming as best we could with minimal impact. We brought it down tonight. So I think we've lived up to the financial mission that we started with at the beginning of the season.
Allowed to say anything?
Of course you are.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure. I'm trying to hand it off.
I know, it's about to be our budget, so there you go. Speak while you can.
So in thinking of a few things as we sit here and I listen to everybody, I think a couple of things that we can do, and what I would recommend based on what you're saying, and it will get us closer to what we're the 5.5 without significant impact, but not significant. Total 137. So we can shave off 137,800. So what I'm recommending is reducing the non-personnel, the safety and security to 80,000. So you can kind of see this. 40,000 for an unfilled transportation, which is in the tier 3 cuts. We'll continue with the athletics at 33,000 because I think we can manage that. And you have 63,000, which is what is our estimate for health, and then 5,000 for the motor fuel, which gets us to 137,800. Oh, 41,800. That's for the transportation. Okay, let me say it one more time.
Yeah.
41,800 for a driver.
Mhm.
33,000 for athletics
Mhm.
out of the 66,000 that we had originally budgeted.
Mhm.
63,000 for health insurance and fuel
fuel.
at 5,000. Oh, no, that's together. Okay, 63,000, get rid of that 5. And it becomes 137,800. And so that, I think, will get us to where you're suggesting, close enough to the 5.5, but also still with impact, but the least impact if we were to go even deeper. And the only other thing that you could do to get that number down is take that 80,000 in safety and security that I'm recommending and put it in a reserve line, which I feel comfortable doing.
Yep. And that would come from the fund balance if we did that, right? It wouldn't come from the budget proper? Yeah, so that would represent a reduction in the fund balance, but not an accrual of not an appropriation of revenue
Right.
in that context. So that makes sense to
And you'd be
everybody.
able to put that in at the end of this 2027 year.
Correct, right. We would have the voters approve that vote now or in May, and then we would do it a year from now, just sort of like we just did.
Because if we do some contracting and we say it's going to cost us 210,000, 80,000 of that is in the reserve fund, and we can pull it out as we go through towards the end if we need it. If we get everything done that we said we needed to get done, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a very reasonable position. And again, I don't want to overstate my position as one person of 5 here, so I don't want to over rely on me.
No, I was going to endorse what you had suggested anyway, so now I'm moving that, which was never stated, and getting behind Heidi's suggestion. But I have a clarifying question for my own understanding. You suggested using fund balance to find the money, if you will, for the
30K.
proposed personnel items. But now this idea involves the use of fund balance for the safety and security. Help me understand the difference.
So it's a reserve line that sits in there and we don't actually touch it and put it into the budget. We hold it in the fund balance and it's reserve, the reserve comes out of the total cost for taxpayers, where the fund balance, we're moving fund balance into the actual budget to lower it. So we're letting it sit there in case we get to that amount without cutting 120,000 or 80,000. It sits there. If we need it, we go back to it. Because sometimes these projects take a long time. And that's what I'm kind of thinking, is that it's going to take a little bit of time to get around to every building, you know, doing all the equipment. Plus what it does is it gives us a little bit of time to think about the 476,000, which we wouldn't put the entire thing in, but be able to find half of that at what, 238,000, I think, for the referendum, to get to referendum. Follow?
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
Thank
I
you.
just want to make sure I'm saying it right, so.
And,
Okay.
and Evan, my takeaway from what Heidi pitched is that would take this budget to more like a 5.6% increase, since we're not doing anything about the two personnel. We're not doing the personnel reductions under tier one, nor are we compensating for them. So it'd be, again, ballpark is fine. We're talking roughly 5.6 at that point, maybe a hair under, because because a tenth of a percent is like $57,000, right? Like,
Yeah. And it does include a transportation specialist, but the thing is we haven't been able to fill it. And if we need it, we've always been able to come back to the board if we get like all of a sudden a ton of applications and we can fill it, we'll come back and say that.
and that is actually a good reminder for anyone listening or in the audience, which is there are many times over the years we've eliminated an unfilled position here at the board because we've determined we can get away without it. And in the middle of the year, turns out, oh no, we actually need it, or a different one. And the board has always been very supportive of making sure we appropriately staff our schools in those circumstances and doing it in a fiscally responsible way. So I don't think we need to worry if there's a mid-year need, we will be able to figure it out, based on past practice at least. Go ahead, please.
So
Somebody
Heidi,
think.
sorry.
Sorry. You can go.
No, she was talking.
Oh.
So,
You're on deck.
So Heidi, are you saying we are going to compromise security with the new suggestion, or are you?
Sorry, we are not going to compromise security because it's still, the money's still going to be there and the reserve fund would be designated specifically for that. So it can't be used for anything else but security. But when we start out, we're going to have, instead of 130,000, if we took away the 120, we'd have 210,000 and we'd have 80,000 of that in the reserve line.
And do you have any insights about the 33,000 concerning what exactly that?
33,000 is athletics.
Yeah, but what part of, I know, I'm remembering like the different, are you
Yeah.
are you at liberty to tell us what is going to get cut from?
So she has quite a bit of things on that list, and I'm not remembering everything off the top of my head.
Wrestling mats and high jump were two of the big ones, as I
Yeah.
recall.
Wrestling jump and wrestling.
Yep, the
sorry,
four
no,
wheeler.
high jump and wrestling mat were two big ones because they're so old. So chairs, you know, some of them are nice. They're needed. Let me make sure I say that, but some are nicer than others, not as necessary right at the moment. So we would be looking, I would say, here's 33,000. Also, I asked, you know, is there anything that we can pull out to pay for out of this year's budget? And we're also looking at that. For example, AEDs, we're looking at that. If we can see something that's been unspent, can we get those this year? So we're doing the same thing that we were doing in facilities, but now we're also doing in athletics.
Okay, so you're still a thumbs up with the mats?
Yeah,
The safety stuff, I remember the high jump, the mats. And
yeah, anything
Blair,
that is a safety issue is definitely something that should still stay in the budget. And if it gets to the point where we're, okay, well, we need 50,000, we'll look at our other tiers to see how we can manipulate that as well.
Okay, so it feels like the longer I stay here, the numbers keep on going down. So I'm willing to stay till 10.
Yeah, Gregory, how much time do we get from
Stay
you?
until April 9th.
Final offer.
Your constituents, thank you.
From the superintendent's perspective, final offer.
So, Frank, go ahead. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
so let's get the numbers correct in our own
That's
minds.
exactly what I was about to say. So you and I are on the same
Yeah.
page.
So help us understand exactly where we are right now. Instead of 5.81,
Well,
I'm making it about 5 maybe 5.7.
That's where I'm at too.
Something about that.
Hell yeah,
Not
Frank.
bad. Okay, so I'm just thinking that if that's the case, and we're clear on that, at this point, I would like to make a recommendation that we go with that because that meets your needs. And it is still, we're making progress towards what we wanted to do. It shows a really good faith effort on our part and on your part. And that was the mission of the Finance Committee, as you've said, Greg. And I think that's a pretty fair place to be right now.
I think, yeah, I'm fully on board with that. And so just to sort of restate what we're talking about, we're looking at the initial reduction scenario that the administration provided us with. We're talking about, from the budget's perspective, actualizing the 120,000 reduction to the safety and security improvements, the $33,000 reduction to athletics, the $58,000 reduction in health insurance savings, and the $5,000 of motor fuel savings. We're actualizing all of those. And then from the fund balance, we're talking about an additional $80,000 going into a reserve account to be ready to be spent if needed within this fiscal year. And if it's not, then we could roll it back into the fund in the budget or whatever in subsequent years if we don't want to continue maintaining a reserve account. Because we've got to reauthorize them every year. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So.
Do a motion for
Yeah.
that, and we'll get that for when the vote
Totally.
happens.
But that's sort of how, and also we're actualizing that $120,000 of savings through the $80,000 reduction that we use the general fund to go into a reserve, and the $40,000 transportation specialist, we eliminate the unfilled position. So no person, but an empty position. So that's sort of how we get there. So the deal is, we're taking the 120 reduction. We're using on the next page the transportation specialist to account for 40 of that, getting it down to 80. And then the 80 we strike from the budget, and then the fund balance funds the reserve accounts. So that money is set aside through a different mechanism that doesn't require fundraising.
Yeah. Can I just make one comment?
Of course you may.
So I'm doing math in my head, and Evan is going to confirm everything
Yes,
as far as the lines
Yeah.
go, and he may have something he needs to say right now. Do you?
fair.
No, I'm kind of in the same boat as Jessica.
Yeah.
No. So
But
yes.
we're going to shoot for the 5.68% because that's what we said, and you guys, if that's what you guys.
I think that we're liking moving in that direction. I know that Frank was okay with it. Kim and I were good with it.
Yeah. So that's the deal. And we just need to confirm the numbers and how it looks on paper. And so I
Yes.
want to make sure, but that's the area, I'll just say those are the areas that we'll go to.
But conceptually, what we're talking about is on the 5.5 reduction page, actualizing all of the items except for the personnel ones, knowing that the safety and security lines actually getting addressed a little separately. But that's dollar-wise, that's what we're doing, which is the 120, the 33, the 58, the 5, those all getting reduced, but not the personnel lines.
Correct.
Everyone follow what I'm saying?
Yes.
Everyone's agreeing that that is accurate? I am comfortable with, and so does the committee want to recommend that to the full board? Thumbs up? All right, good job, everybody. Hell of a year. One important question. I know where Frank falls on this question. Frank, do you want to introduce the question?
So my whole life in education has been as a scab. So when I first started teaching, I came in as a scab, had no idea that I was coming in to do that as a teacher. When I came on the board, the same thing happened. I had no idea of the politics involved with several people resigning in Harpswell. And when it came budget time, I suggested that we can either do an open or a closed vote. A closed vote means that you can only reduce the budget. An open says that you can reduce it, but you can also ask for more money to be put in. And when this was happening, there was difficulty around that question. And at an open board meeting, I said, well, I'd like to propose that we do it open. And I feel like that ought to be the case every year. But that's just me and my thinking. That important point has to be decided in order for us to move forward with our budget, whether or not in our May meeting, do we have an open or closed budget at the meeting in the Orion. And this may be one of those years to think that way too.
So does everyone understand the difference, open and close? So remember last year, 2 years ago, I move we reduce the budget by this warrant item by $30,000, and someone, seconds, we voted, failed, et cetera. This would allow someone to say, but we increase this warrant item by $100,000, second vote, et cetera. So that's the difference, open and close. You can always vote it down, lower, but an open warrant, open articles rather than warrants, open articles allow you to raise it as well. So any opinions from the committee or board members present?
I find it interesting that we have that power.
What we do.
I usually also think that, like you, that should be. That it should be more power in the hands of the people, which favors an open budget. I also worry that with that, I don't know. I guess what I'm worried about is exactly what you get in a democracy. Which I'm all in favor for. Don't mistake that comment. It would be difficult I think, for me to see the budget go up and down and all around sort of. I would hope it would be thoughtful. Let's put it that way. Because we collectively have put a lot of thought into the budget, and I, reached some level of consensus. It's still got the full board to go through. There's a lot of checks and balances before we present it to the public. So I guess I'm not really making a good coherent point here, except I'm just sharing, I'm riffing my concerns, if you will.
No, I think those are reasonable thoughts for sure.
And Jessica, just to be clear, we do not have that power, but the full board does.
Good point.
And that's really important to consider.
Thank you, Frank, for that clarification. That's an important clarification. Kim?
I think we've had closed warrants for my entire tenure on the board, and I'm inclined to think that that's probably a good idea again for this year, even though conceptually I appreciate the participatory value of more flexibility, but to Jessica's point, you already took one of my points out of my mouth, which is I think a lot of good work and thinking has already gone into getting us to this place. I look around at what's going on in our district, and I'm thinking about the facilities master plan, and I honestly would be worried about kind of a cavalier decision to increase the budget at a time when we know that our communities and our district is sort of, going to face some future very challenging financial decisions around our facilities. And I also look at last year's budget season where many, many, many towns around Maine started the fiscal year without a budget. And so with a thinking toward let's not upset the apple cart, I'm inclined to recommend closed warrants personally.
Reasonable. Gregory?
I haven't been to the Orion budget. I guess I favor a deliberative process, which I don't think you get in that evening in terms of the impact and the numbers and how much one town's now going to pay. And so I just don't think we could even come up with the answers to if something got raised on the spot, know what the impact was really. We just know that it would go up. We don't know how much. So I just think it's safer to kind of go with what all this budgeting software and planning and towns will probably be, if it does go down, I don't think there'll be an outcry if that happens, right? But there will be an outcry if it goes up.
And a good point to remember, again, for anyone listening, wherever you may be, but for the board members here as well, is that if the budget is changed at the district budget meeting, there's one person who decides how that money spending changes, and she's wearing a white and black striped shirt over there, right? So budget gets reduced, she determines and it's warrant by warrant, right? So if the general instruction budget is reduced, she works with Evan and her principals, she decides what that reduction is going to look like. It gets increased, she decides with her team what that looks like, not the voters, not even us. Again, we may have an advisory capacity. If there's a new position, it'll come to us, but broadly speaking, this is, the superintendent and her team will actualize the budget, whatever that number ends up being.
Meaning you can't go to the meeting with an agenda.
Correct. You can go to the meeting with a dollar amount. That's what you can do. I sort of like Kim. I was at the Orion meeting for the year that Frank talks about with the open articles, and I will confess I voted to raise the article for general instruction that year as a member of the public. I will put on my board member hat and say that my thinking has evolved since then a bit, which is that I think that generally speaking, closed is a better way to respect the work of the process. But if we were considering significant cuts, I would want to do an open warrant article, I forget, whatever the word is, I would an open process because I would want, if we were doing significant cuts, I would want the voters to have an opportunity to override us because they can always override us down. If we were doing significant cuts, I would want them to have the opportunity to override us up. And we're not doing significant cuts. So even though I understand where Frank is coming from and I like it, I would probably go for a closed myself, but that's just me.
Be clear. I'm only saying that we will have to make this decision, and it's really important that we discuss it here
Agreed.
now so that we are clear as to what we want to do and recommend to the full board.
100%. And one of the things I appreciate every year is that you're very good at leading this conversation because you have a very clear perspective, and I value that very much. So give me a thumbs up if you want to, if we're, any more questions or thoughts, I guess, first. And if not, give me a thumbs up if you want an open budget this year. Give me a thumbs up if you want a closed this year. All right, we're going to, and it's okay if you're not sure, that's fine. So at the moment, the committee is going to recommend closed budget to the full board. We will have this conversation again with the full board, so everyone can weigh in, and we might even have Frank lead that conversation too, who knows? So you'll have an opportunity to further consider, Jessica, and discuss, and the board will vote at that time as a whole body.
And that decision gets made by majority?
Majority vote, yep, exactly. Normal vote procedure. Good question, Kim. So, process reminder. We have a budget that we are recommending to the board. I want to say good work to you guys and the admin. I do want to say good work to the committee because it is a lot of work. We listen. Again, our work is to listen and to consider and to deliberate and to ask questions. Your work is to go through a hell of a lot of numbers and difficult decisions and present them to us. So Heidi and Evan, I will be the broken record and say, please thank your administration teams, your school teams, your department teams. I know everybody through the entire chain puts a lot of energy into this. So thank the two of you, and please thank all of them on our behalf. The next step is that Thursday, April 9th at 6 o'clock, which is before our regular meeting at 6:30, will be the final public budget hearing where this budget will be proposed. And so Evan will have the final numbers reflecting the reductions that we've spoken about and the adjustments we've spoken about today, which are pretty straightforward and minimal, and that presentation will happen. There'll be no action taken. It's sort of essentially just like the presentations we saw at the schools, opportunity for some questions. And then at 6:30, our regular board meeting will begin. And items of new business will include to adopt the budget and to approve open or closed warrants. And at that point in time, at the end of the meeting, we will all sign all those warrants that Evan will bring ready for us to sign. The warrants will get shared out with the 4 towns. They'll get posted, they'll get hung up. And then we will all convene at the Orion on May 21st, which is a Thursday at 6:30. We'll have a moderator to run the meeting, and we will go through the entire process where every warrant will get voted upon, and off we go. And then we'll see what happens. And then assuming we adopt a budget as a community on May 21st, and we all vote as, community, June 9th is the referendum date when the voters sort of approve the finalized budget that comes out of the district budget meeting. Are there any questions from anybody in the committee or the board about the process and the steps? Please.
Yeah, I have a couple just for the warrant articles.
Yes.
Because we have various capital reserve funds that we have put into the warrant articles in years past, and I want to see if the committee wants me to write all those into the warrants again this year.
My
And at what dollar amount too?
My thinking would be to maintain them with the addition, again, the committee can weigh in, but what I would pitch to the committee is let's maintain our reserves as they have been, with the exception of the new $80,000 reserve that Heidi is proposing.
Okay.
Any thoughts, questions, discussion from the committee? Kim says yes.
In general.
Frank says yes. So all I will flag is, and this is probably the right choice for
general.
this year, this is not putting anything new towards like the field reserve, the general capital improvement reserve. So I think we do need to pay some attention to that next year. But I think that we're looking, as we're catching up on our audits and we're seeing our fund balance draw down, I think it's wise to sort of take a beat, see what we're looking at next year when we'll be fully caught up. Our next budget process will be fully caught up on our audits and be in a stronger position to make some of those larger reserve decisions. So if everyone's on board with that, I think you guys can take that advice into next year and be in good position.
I think that we can take out one of the reserve lines because that's the special ed line for 100,000.
Okay.
And we haven't had to use that over the years. And when, a few years ago, when we put it in because our out-of-district line was really high. And it's not that same way. I mean, it doesn't mean in the future it couldn't go back up again, but right now I feel very confident that we can use that for the 80,000 of the safety line in there.
So, I mean, shooting from the hip here, what do we think about moving that into the capital improvement line, reserve? Right? Like if we have a reserve item that's already not part of our general unexpended fund balance, instead of returning it to the fund balance, what if we turn that into an investment in our capital improvement fund, which we were just 3 seconds ago, I said we're not going to put any money into this year. Which one? Well, it was the larger one that you said, right? Or let me rephrase that. If we were to do that, what would you recommend we put it into as our business manager? Or would you not recommend we do this at all? I mean, this is me, like I said, I'm responding to information kind of quickly. So if you have a different thought or recommendation, I think we're all ears, certainly.
I'll just say from historical position, we've put the most amount of money into capital reserve fund. In 2025, we did $200,000.
Mm-hmm.
And then last year, we didn't talk about this at all, so I didn't put any of those together. So we don't have any of those in the 26 warrant articles. And then in 2025, we also did $85,000 to the regular instruction fund and $100,000 to special ed.
So I would say move the 100 into the capital. Was it improvement or capital reserve? So what was the name?
It's called the Capital Reserve Fund. That one had $750,000.
So,
The 85,000, when we did it that year, was for a K teacher in Harpswell if
That's
we
right.
needed it. And
That's
then we
right.
were able to adjust.
so I don't, again, this is me thinking kind of quickly. I don't know if other members of the committee have any thoughts, but I said, my thinking is a reserved amount is already sort of not being accounted for as available funds. And sort of putting it towards something we know we want to be reserving seems wise and has no impact on our budget process, right? It's just moving it to a different reserve, which seems straightforward. So that's my thinking. But you guys are welcome to not like my thinking. Works for you? Jessica, you cool with that? Do you have any objection? Do you think, does that seem like a reasonable approach to you?
Yeah, so what amount though?
I guess the full 100, right? So
Okay.
we moved that over to increase that line by that much this year. And then I feel like actually we've caught up on a couple years of contributions, to be perfectly honest, which
that-
feels good.
And that'd be a total of $300,000 for the capital reserve line.
Right, and which is, yes, that's correct.
A total of 300, okay.
Yeah, I think so.
And that'd be from unexpended fund balances. So at the end of 27, if we
Right.
had left over, we'd say, okay,
I'd
yes.
say yes, we'd be authorized to do that.
But
precisely.
the $80,000 for safety and security, we could just authorize that throughout the normal school year. And that just changes the language. So that's why I'm asking those
Okay.
clarifying questions.
I believe that is correct. That's my takeaway. Okay, any other questions for us, Evan?
I think I'm good there. I'll have to put everything into the different warrants. So if you're looking at the warrant summary that I provided previously, those numbers will change as I shuffle them into the correct places. Like the new asks.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
That's totally fair. I mean, I'll be blunt. I think we're all looking at the top line number anyway. So
Yeah, no
that's
problem. And I think that's it for me. Yeah.
Cool. And then from a process perspective, so the whole board will vote to adopt the budget. And we don't vote separately to sign the warrant articles. We just vote to adopt the budget, and that authorizes us to sign, or do we also have to vote to sign? I'm trying to remember procedure-wise if there's a separate vote for that. It's amazing how much you can forget in a year.
I don't remember.
So we'll see is the answer to that. But whatever necessary votes, they will be there.
Each of these referenda are voted on and accepted by the towns at the Orion meeting. That gives authorization.
So that's the final budget. We also have to sign the articles to get distributed to the towns beforehand.
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm referring as that signature. I just can't remember if we have to vote separately than the adoption of the budget to be able to do that. Because I remember last week we had a
Yes.
special meeting to do it.
Yes, we have to do it twice.
So, okay, that's what I thought. So there'll be a couple votes regarding this next week. So we all get to look forward to that. And bring your blue pen and you exercise your writing hand. You have to sign several copies.
Yeah, so some of the towns like 9 copies. I think it's
Yeah.
Harpswell likes 9 copies because they post it all over
So-
the place.
It'll be a lot of signing. So don't be ready. All right. Any other comments, questions from the people sitting at the Horseshoe? I'll now open this up to any public comments. All right, guys, this is the close of the regular budget season. I will coordinate with you for a final sort of recap meeting after we've made it through the Orion at the very least, to sort of close up this year and think about next year. But thank you all very much. Great work, committee.
Thank you, Hudson, for chairing us.
Yeah.
Second time, Sean.